And we'll start in 2 minutes as we get more of our committee members joining us. Hopefully, Bahari, you're keeping track of all the, the committee members that are coming in.
But right now we have 3 phone calls, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I'm not,
if we have any panelists or committee members in those 3 phone calls. If there's,
yeah,
please let me know. I have 106, 384, and 596.
yeah, I'm not sure if those folks are.
Yeah, I'm gonna let them talk, see if they can identify themselves.
Okay.
Hello, this is Taylor Gross with Carb.
Okay, what is your phone number?
106.
0106.
Okay, panelists, can you promote him to panelists, Tony, please?
Well, he could call in on the telephone number.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, sorry.
If you call in, we cannot promote you to panelists if you call on the phone.
You could change his name.
So it is.
Is Renee Ruth going into a, okay.
Renee is attendee.
Okay. How about Vincent
Vincent, what's the last name?
McDowell?
Yes, Vince McDowell. Yes, he is a committee member. I just promoted Sheila from EPA. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sheila, is that you from?
No, this is Rita Loof. I don't know why it's showing up as Renee Loof. It should not. Renee Loof is not attending.
Okay. Oh my God. Are
So,
you? There you are. Okay.
so, but I'm not promoting.
There you are. I just promoted Rita to panelist. Are you there, Rita?
Yes.
Here now. Okay,
Oh,
now
there you
it's
are.
working. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're already at 2:04. I'll tell you what, I'll get started with the introductions. Bahari, if you can keep an eye on we have a lot of folks today.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're gonna get started. Thank you, everyone. Hello and welcome to the first ever B-LAER Scientific Review Committee that's remote and online. We're gonna try to make this work. Appreciate all your cooperation. My name is Al Baez. I'm the program supervisor of the BACT program here at the South Coast AQMD. And also joining me is Bahari. Go ahead.
Bahar Farahani, Senior Quality Engineer of B-LAER team.
And we also have several staff from AQMD, and which shall go nameless, but I'm sure they'll be listening in case questions comes up. And I hope everybody staying safe and healthy. And with that, we have a full agenda to cover tonight or today. So we're going to try to address as many comments as we can, but also allow time for the public to comment at the end. And with that, what I'm going to do, I'll go through the roll call of the committee members. And what I'm going to do to make this go smoother is I'm going to mention your organization. And when you hear your organization, can you please state your name? Okay. Here we go. And I see some folks that are muted, so be sure to unmute yourself when you hear your organization's name. First off, US EPA.
Sheila Tai.
Okay. CARB. Oh, Pippin, you're.
Oops, this is Pippin Mater.
Okay, great. San Diego APCD. Okay. California Energy Commission. Bay Area AQMD. SoCal Edison. SoCal Gas. LA County Sanitation District.
David Rothbart.
LADWP.
Bang Feng.
Okay. Orange County Sanitation District. WISPA. California Small Business Alliance.
Bill Lamar.
Okay, thank you. RadTech.
Rita Loof.
York Engineering.
Judy York.
ES Engineering Services or Montrose. Carl's not here. Ship and Shore Environmental.
Anusha Skuyan.
And I know Gary Rubenstein won't be able to make it. He's from Fall Weather Consulting. UC Riverside. And UC Irvine.
Yeah, it's Vince McDonald.
Okay, hi Vince.
Just added Orange County Sanitation District, Terry.
Okay.
Al, this
Yes.
was Wayne Miller. I was muted, so I didn't tell you that, but there was a problem dialing in. It bounced a couple times, so maybe people.
Oh no. Okay, I'm glad you're in. And carry on. Are you online?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, great.
Hello?
Hello. Yes. We
Yeah, I had problem joining in the beginning too. Hello?
can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, yeah, I could hear you.
Oh,
It was the link that in the
Thank you.
agenda works.
Does that link work? Okay. All right. Well, tell you what, we're gonna get started now. Thanks again, everyone. We're gonna get started right now. So, Tony, if you can start the presentation slide. Okay, thank you, and welcome again. We're going to get started. This is the second BACT SRC meeting of this year. The first one was back in February of this year, where we presented preliminary ideas of what we plan to propose to update the guidelines. So today, we're going to provide more detailed information on our proposed updates. Next slide. All right, as I mentioned, back in February of this year, we amended the guidelines in 2019, which seems a long time. And now a lot of things have happened since then, as you all know. So we're trying to do the best to update the guidelines in the current situation. So basically, at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Bahare to continue the presentation. Next slide, please.
Okay. In this round, as we talked about it last time, there are some correction and mostly like clarifications to the BACT guidelines. And we did some small changes in part A, C, D, and E, and also overview. And the main change probably in the review part is that under the ozone depleting compound for group C, we didn't put the complete name of the substances. So we just add the name of all the substances to be consistent with the rest of the group. And also for for all of those parts, we changed the name of the district or SC-AQMD to South Coast AQMD. And in part B also, we have seven actually new, 7 updates and 1 new proposed changes. So we are going to explain it in the next slides. And then part C, which is the policy and procedures. Again, it was like always, we update the maximum cost effectiveness criteria based on the most updated one. And in part D also, we have some new and updated listing, plus some clarification and updates. This time we put the tables, part of the tables in the presentation to make it more understandable for our SRC member, also public, to see the small changes, which is mostly the cosmetic changes, and make it most user-friendly. Next slide, please. In this round, we added 3 new categories of thermal oxidizer. The first one is the RTO, and we have an achieved in practice example. And the facility actually, they have several coating and ovens, and they actually use the RTO to vent the prime and finish coating stations to the regenerative thermal oxidizer. And the NOx limit and CO limit for this RTO is permitted at 30 ppm NOx and 100 ppm CO on dry basis at corrected to 3% oxygen. And we also have source test data, which shows that they are in compliance with those emission limits. And these emissions, they are for the burner operation only. So it is before that they actually inject the waste gas, the process gas to the system. And this particular case, it is the RTO is, as you know, is the dual ceramic bed heat exchanger. Next slide, please.
But Bara,
Yes, please.
is this RTO in South Coast, or is it outside of South Coast?
It is in South Coast. This is one of our facilities.
All right, thank you.
And the next one, another type of the thermal oxidizer, which is a recuperative thermal oxidizer. So they have that heat exchanger. And again, we presented one achieve in practice. And this facility, they're venting adhesive coaters ovens to the RTO. And the NOx limit, again, like the regenerative one, is permitted at 30 ppm on a dry basis, corrected to 3% oxygen. And the CO limit is 250 ppm. And the source test also support those limits for the emission. Next, please. Oh, and by the way, for the first two, the destruction and control efficiency for both, they are 95% for RTO and regenerative, recuperative thermal oxidizer. This thermal oxidizer is used to control vapors from marine loading operation. So in the permit description, sometimes we refer to the flare or sometimes thermal oxidizer. But mostly after adopting Rule 1118.1, we're trying to be consistent with the rule. And if it's actually complied with the definition of the rule, we use it as a flare. But this facility was permitted before the adoption of the rule. So in the permit, it mentioned thermal oxidizer, but actually the definition is some sort of flare. So they have two pair of flares and burner with maximum heat release rating of 39 million BTU per hour for each of them. And they can operate together or individually. So they use the natural gas to bring it up to the temperature, and then natural gas goes to the burner. And actually, besides burning natural gas as a supplemental fuel, each of the oxidizer collects organic vapors displaced from the vessel during cargo loading operations. So that sources results confirms compliance with permit NOx and CO limit. So as you see here, the NOx is 30 ppm at 3%, and also CO is 10 ppm corrected at 3% O2.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are these volatile organics, or are these heavy organics like you would see when they're transferring crude oil, or does it matter?
For this one, I know this is the marine terminal. I don't have recollection. What is the commodity?
The commodity at this location is a variety of solvents, Wayne. So
Okay.
it's not crude oil,
Okay.
but it's more lighter type solvent.
Okay. Does it matter in the rule? That's all I asked.
I don't think so. Well, for BACT, whether obviously if it's a heavier solvent, it has a lower vapor pressure, so less emissions. So really, for this determination, we're looking at really only the NOx, establishing a layer for NOx on the flare. We're not establishing a destruction efficiency per se, although it's expected that it'll work adequately.
Yeah, I mean, there's no ROG concept here. That's why I asked the question.
I see. ROG, reactive organics and volatile organics. Yeah.
But this is for the flare thermal oxidizer operating without the species being destroyed. Is that right?
No, yeah, exactly. Because whenever we determine this back, this is for the
Just
not
for the
including
burner.
the process emissions.
Right.
Because this is only for, as we said, this is only for the burner emissions, not
Yeah.
when the process emissions, like it's venting the fumes from the tanks.
Right. Yeah, the first two were, it was clear in that regard. This one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We should have included that also here.
Yeah.
Right, that's an important distinction.
That's right. Yeah, we'll make sure we note that that this is again similar. It's a burner emissions only, not the process emissions.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
The prior two, you did say 95%. So is that the expected destruction efficiency? But for this flare?
For this flare, I need to check, because for the other two, it was it was defined in the permit. For this one, I need to look. I don't recall it right now.
A lot of times in the permit, the condition includes a destruction efficiency, whether it's overall or just or like capture or destruction overall efficiency.
Yeah.
In those cases, we don't. There'll be a layer determination of the process to capture the emissions. In this case, we're focusing really on the NOx emissions of the burner. The fact that we're assuming that when this flare or thermal oxidizer was permitted, that was understood that it was going to achieve at least 95% of whatever the required destruction efficiency was going to be. So
yeah, I'm just checking my notes.
I have a question. This is Anusha. So are we mainly just concerned with the burner performances?
that's right. This is a
in
NOx.
all of the applications?
No. In this case,
Just in this particular one?
yes. Because
yeah, the other question is on the other two. I thought in South Coast District we do try to achieve 98% minimum destruction, right? Or
yeah.
are we still considering 95 at times?
Well, the thing, it varies. That's why we're very careful when we're trying to establish BACT because BACT layer can be case specific. If we start putting a destruction efficiency for this flare, that thermal oxidizer, it could vary. I mean, I'm assuming that most thermal oxidizers and flares are at 90% or higher. So, but sometimes they vary.
It also depends on the concentration of the organics. If it's low
Exactly.
concentration, it's not going to be the same.
Exactly. So
No,
for
I want to add that this BACT determination is for NOx and CO, so it is not for the VOC.
Yeah.
So for the destruction efficiency for RTU and recuperative one, we added under the comment section, but it is not part of the BACT determination.
yeah, we always add that information because a lot of times the public wants to know, okay, well, what is this doing? What kind of destruction efficiency is it achieving? But really, this layer determination is for the burner itself.
Next slide, please. So this is a process heater for non-refineries which use the thermal fluid heater, and it is fired on natural gas. We presented two examples of achieving practice, and one of the facility actually produced a variety of asphalt-based roofing. The other one also is in the business of the asphalt and asphalt roofing, and they operate a thermal fluid heater, so which circulate the hot oil through the hollow agitators in a kind of closed mixing vessel to heat limestone filler, which is blended with asphalt prior to application to the shingles. And the sources results show they are both facilities, they are in compliance with NOx limit of 9 ppm and CO limit of 100 ppm. And the averaging time for this for NOx and CO is 15 consecutive minutes based on Rule 1146. And the reason we listed them is, as you may know, the process heaters on Rule 1146 have a limit of 12 ppm NOx, and these examples have gone beyond that, so we recognize them as LAER. And one of the heaters is at the rate, the firing rate is 4.5 million BTU per hour, and the other one is 10 million BTU per hour. So it's kind kind of two different examples, and both they have those low NOx burners that they can comply with 9 ppm NOx limit. Next, please.
Are those asphalt heaters, those are stationary, I assume, right?
They
Yes.
are stationary, yeah.
Of course, okay.
This is the actually this is a facility that they have 5 IC engines stationary from 147 to 385 brake horsepower, and they are non-emergency electrical generation, rich burn, and with, of course, with NSCR. So we are adding a new stationary prime IC engines to the listing. Initially, they were permitted as emergency engines, but they exceeded 200 hours limit. And then the facility they proposed to operate the emergency engines as prime engines and meet the rule 1110.2 DG standards. So the permit to construct for those prime engines was issued in 2015 or 16. And then we are presenting in this slide, I'm presenting 2 of them. And these are actually, they source tested, and the source test results shows that they are in compliance with rule 1110.2 NOx, VOC, and CO limit, and all the corrected at to 15% oxygen on a dry basis.
This is Dan McGivney, SoCal Gas.
Hi, Dan.
Hi. I believe those are our engines.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I guess we have a we have a few, I guess, comments, and we may need to just meet with you on the side on this. But you know, these engines were, as you noted, were originally emergency engines, and due to their use to during these red flag high wind warnings in the summer, were high potential for fires, and we have to shut down our electrical distribution system. So we had to operate these. The district actually, after a couple of years of letting us have some extra hours, requested that we permit these as prime engines. So we did implement this technology, but we, you know, these engines have run only a total of around 800 plus or minus hours in total each, with half of that during commissioning and startup. And so they, you know, while they've been in operation for a couple of years, they're really not being used any differently than they were before, which is for power outages and red flag warnings. So their hours are low. We've experienced a lot of challenges. We've had to put load banks on these small generators just to help them meet the limits and stuff. And we've had a lot of other mechanical issues and stuff in implementing this stuff. So I'm not sure we would agree that they're ready for prime time, you know, listing as, you know, for BACT. We're at a point where we're going to have to change catalysts already. And again, they've only had about 800 hours. Typically a rich burn engine would get several thousand hours on a catalyst. So maybe we can, you know, chat, you know, on this or something, but we also think we need to make some corrections on your control technology section there on the equipment description and on the comment that's in the 5G comments there. So,
well, Dan, here's where we look at technology that's evolving, that's been achieved in practice, and your engines really are not emergency. They are not emergency.
I understand they're not now because they're permitted as prime engines because we had to do that, but we're not using them any differently than we did before, right? So that's why the low hours. If these engines were running that you know, several thousand hours a year, they might have, you know, a lot different outcome than what, you know, than we're here talking about today.
Oh, yeah, for the sake of time, we can talk later. We can talk later, but we really feel that this technology has been source tested and achieved in practice. So yeah, we'll talk.
Okay, thanks.
Al, this is Bill Lamar.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, going back on your slides 4 through 6, I guess it is, where you're talking about low NOx burners.
Yes.
Can you tell us who the manufacturers are? Are these all the same are these burners all by the same manufacturer or different ones?
They're different, but that information is on the listings that we have right now on our BACT webpage. Under the docket, we listed all those determinations with information on the burners, on the rating, and all that information. It's part of the information that they'll be available for 30 days as this 30-day public comment period. So
and you've got the name of the manufacturers on there?
Yes. All
Yes.
that's
Can you send me a link to that?
okay. We'll send you a link.
Could you? I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is David Rothbart.
Please do.
Regarding the slide for the stationary non-emergency generator, in addition to the concerns Dan expressed, I have concerns about just making sure this is a reliable technology as well. And in the past, when we've had just say an emergency generator, it had to run for a very long time before it was deemed to be backed. And maybe that's appropriate to revisit that for this situation as well. But my more specific comment is, since it really was intended for an emergency generator, is there any thought that these limits or these examples would be utilized for backed for an emergency generator?
No, these engines that Dan mentioned, these are not permitted as emergency engines. These are permitted as non-emergency.
I just wanted to check, since that was the intent of these generators. I want to make sure there's a segregation on the thought process.
If there's an issue with the compliance issue with the engines, that's something we're not aware of, then maybe perhaps they should go back to emergency status. So
We'll leave that to Dan.
yeah, exactly. So if Dan is telling us they're having issues, I didn't know that. We can address that with our engineering folks, and we'll talk later.
All right, thank you.
Go
Al,
ahead. Yes.
if you could also send me that link on maybe the entire committee, the one that you referenced to Bill Lamar, that would really be helpful.
Yeah, it was actually part of the second notice I sent out. It says all the documents will be available here starting July 22nd.
And also the email I forwarded, which has the presentation, I believe that I forward the same email Al sent it. So it should be down below that the same email I sent yesterday.
We'll send to all the committee members again, but for everybody else online right now, if you go to our website under the BACT webpage, there is a link to the public notice docket. That webpage has the links to all the proposed updates to the guidelines. It has them all separate from the table of contents, the overview, and the different parts.
Yeah, Al, this is Bill again. I'm looking at your email, and you've got parts A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah.
Can you tell me which one that is? I have the links, but.
Oh yeah, the one for those are part B.
B as in boy?
Yeah, that's the part B for the layer determinations. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That'll do it.
Okay, thanks.
Al, did you say these two engines are natural gas fired?
These the ones that the slide you see right now. Yes, these are
Natural gas. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
go ahead, Bahar. Go ahead. Continue, please.
Next slide, please. Okay, and this is currently there is no back determination in Part B for this particular category. The duct burner is part of the cogen system, so it has like so includes the gas turbines, steam turbines, and also the heat recovery steam generators. So the heat recovery system, generator is equipped with the duct burner to provide additional heat for steam production. So we are looking to bring some guidance to duct burner sulfur emissions. So this back determination actually is for SOx emission. And this case, the duct burner is running on refinery fuel gas. And so since the emission from both gas turbine and burner, they go all to the same stack. So what we are measuring, kind of following the instruction per 40 CFR 60 subpart JA. So instead of measuring the SOx in the stack, we have a SEMS that it measures the H2S, total reduced sulfur, before injecting the fuel gas to the burner and before blending with natural gas. So since the duct burner is diluted with the gas turbines, this is how we want to make sure that we are looking on the emission from the refinery fuel gas. So we have one achieved in practice example with more than 6 months of supporting SEMS data, and the permit limit established at 40 ppm rolling 1 hour average period and 30 ppm 24 averaging time for this particulate case.
So that's 40 ppm as H2S or as sulfur?
It is total reduced sulfur as H2S.
And have you checked the SEMS? Is the stability quite good? Are you getting data on the adequacy, of the sensor?
Yes, that's what we did. We look at more than actually a little more than 6 months of the SEMS data, and it shows that it is pretty consistent and they are meeting this limit. They're lower than those limits.
So I was talking about the sensor. So that has very good stability over time, not the measurement, but the sensor itself.
Well, these sensors are all, I believe, they go through is it a RADA process?
They have to check.
I think I have to check with our source testing folks, but I'm sure that there's a requirement for the sensors and the whole monitoring system to go through reliability testing.
There used to be an EPA program that did that, but they don't do it anymore. So
yeah, we'll follow up. I'm sure that there is a requirement. We can have some of our source testing folks chime in if they like, or engineering folks regarding this.
That's okay.
That's, but I'm pretty sure that since it is a very critical part of the permit, that the monitoring equipment is required to undergo reliability testing.
The only other question I have, I like that you're measuring the source to give you how much sulfur is coming out. Do you actually speciate the sulfur coming out to find out how much is sulfuric acid and how much is SO2?
No, this is in the fuel.
No, I realize you're measuring the fuel, but the exhaust could have sulfuric acid as well as SO2. The preponderance will be SO2.
I see.
Maybe the source people have done that, so.
Al, you want me to say something?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah, Deepankar, regarding the monitor for the SEMS for the sulfur, do they have a RADA requirement also?
Okay, I'm not familiar with this particular one, but if it is a continuous SIMS, as you say over here, which monitors total reduced sulfur, there are two ways to do it. Number one, you can measure sulfur directly in the fuel gas using a gas chromatograph type technology. Or number two, you can measure SO2 after combustion and back calculate the total reduced sulfur. But if it is a SIMS, then there will be RADA requirements. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this is solely a function of the fuel gas itself, right? So
yes.
Okay.
So what is the option to get to these limits? Do you have to clean the fuel gas, or
that we leave that open to the sites? We're not going to dictate how they go about doing that.
Okay.
It would be, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I'm sure the source testing people, they have methods of comparing how much is sulfuric acid and how much is SO2. I mean, there's EPA protocol methods, so I don't know if that's of interest to them, maybe in the permit, but anyway, it's just an observation I would have. There's probably both, though.
Okay, thank you.
And if it's a 313 type of limit where you have a sulfuric acid concern, then someone should measure it, for example.
Okay. Make a note of that.
Okay. Next slide, please. We already have other categories for aluminum furnace listed in Part B, including a forging furnace and melting furnace. This is a new entry for heat treating oven furnace or oven or furnace. So, and it is rated at 5.47 million BTU per hour. The facility is in the business of manufacturing aluminum extrusions. And this furnace treats billets prior to and also during the extrusion process. And the billets are heated to 970 degrees Fahrenheit in a chamber. So that's why we put this temperature on the top, because it is also important in the BACT determination. And the NOx limit is 25 ppm on dry basis. And there is one example of achieving practice with source test data, which shows compliance with 25 ppm NOx limit. Next, please.
Maybe you want to add that it's dry.
Excuse me?
Wayne?
Dry basis.
Wayne, can you repeat again, please?
Oh, I just said maybe you want to add that it's dry, like on the earlier slides.
Yeah, right. Like last time, you also mentioned that, and we check. You're right. It like the way that they measure, they are all based on dry basis. Okay, so this is actually a proposed update to the current listing. So we are updating the current gas turbine simple cycle category based on achieved in practice example. This gas turbine is a peaker plant and it is permitted at 2.3 ppm NOx limit and is operating at this limit for a while. The source test data shows the gas turbine meets this limit for NOx, and so we are changing the NOx limit from 2.5 to 0.3 ppm for the simple cycle natural gas turbine. The CO limit is still 4 ppm, and the ammonia slip limit will be same as 5 ppm. And for this case, we got the SEMS data from the facility for 1 year. So we already look at the 1 hour data for the PM. We also got for the every 15 minutes. So still working on the every 15 minutes, but till now, the data shows that the last year, actually they meet the 2.3 ppm emission limit. So that's why we are proposing to have an update to this listing to go from 2.5 to 2.3 ppm.
But the ammonia is not measured on the SEMS, is it? Isn't that just
It is, but it is actually measured, and that's a whole other subject. We can talk about that, how we're working on a protocol to determine to do the SEMS for ammonia, but
Okay.
some facilities have used SEMS for ammonia monitoring.
That's new to me then. Thank you. Usually they do them quarterly or something, you know. All right, thank you.
Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, and I guess I'll take over from here.
Yes, please, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bahari. We've just covered all the major source layer determinations, and now we're going to start talking about the minor source BACT determinations. As you know from our last meeting in February, there are two categories that we dropped off. Those were we were proposing to include a 10 ppm ammonia slip limit on stationary non-emergency engines. And there was a discussion regarding how we are going to estimate and do a cost effectiveness, because for those, in short, I can spend the rest of the hour just talking about this, but really it was, we're now working among staff here with engineering and planning and rules on how we're going to establish a methodology to determine the PM impacts from the ammonia slip. In other words, we're directly looking at if you're going from a 20 ppm ammonia slip down to 10 ppm, which you're proposing, what kind of PM impacts is that going to have? Is that going to be just ammonium nitrate or also ammonium sulfates, or a combination of both of those? And we have to establish amongst ourselves what that's going to be and how we're going to determine that, because there is no cost per ton basis or value for ammonia. So we're going to have to use the PM as the limiting criteria pollutant on that. So we'll be back at the next, we're going to be working on that for some time, and we'll be back at the next time we update the guidelines with that proposal. The other one was the cannabis extraction process. That was an industry that's now becoming a industry here in our area, along other places in California. And the emissions from the cannabis extraction come from the solvents that are used to extract the oils from the cannabis. And we have been working with 2 facilities that have been doing butane extraction and ethanol extraction. And during the current lockdown period, a lot of these facilities have not been able to operate. So our research and our source testing of establishing a recovery of the solvent has not gone too far. So we felt we're not ready to establish a BACT for that. So those 2 listings we'll be revisiting at a later date. But for now, we're looking at fermentation of wine. This is a BACT determination that came to us from Santa Barbara County APCD. They have already included in their BACT guidelines as BACT. And this is for wine fermentation only. It's for closed tanks that are less than 30,000 gallons. And basically all the big steel tanks that are being vented naturally to these 2 type of controls, which one of them is a water scrubber, the other one is a chiller condenser. And they've achieved a 6 to 7% overall control. And how that is determined is through testing of the water slurry from the water scrubber or the condensate from the chiller condenser. And we've done a cost effectiveness evaluation on this from cost that was provided to us by Santa Barbara APCD. And that information, that cost info is available again on our public notices docket. There's a link with all those calculations there. In addition, we've had source test information from Santa Barbara that shows that this technology has been achieved. Next slide, please. As some of you may recall, back in January of 2019, when we presented at the Stationary Source Committee our proposed updates to the guidelines that went to the board in February, one of the items that came up and topics was regarding the use of UV-EV technology, coatings or inks, as potential BACT. The Stationary Source Committee directed us to follow up regarding the availability of this technology for categories listed in a comment letter we received from RadTech. And we looked into that, and we spent some time. And in the summer of last year, we conducted several site visits to facilities listed in the RadTech comment letter and other printing out facilities that have been using UV inks and coatings. We like to, that technology is a technology that we believe is a clean technology. So we like to be able to encourage folks and also really acknowledge that technology as a clean technology. Next slide. Thank you. UV applications, ultraviolet applications, the 2 facilities that we visited that were part of the RadTech comment letter were a facility that does flat glass silk screening, and that was from Mirrors, and a facility that uses exclusively also UV coatings for wood cabinets. We also visited several facilities that are in the paper industry that do packaging, labels, stationery, and even album covers using UV coatings. The one thing we discovered after an extensive site visits and talking to the industry is that really the use of UV coatings and inks is really driven by the customer. The customer would normally request that of the printing facility to use those coatings, And a lot of times the reason they prefer that is because durability. UV coatings and inks have a durability, and the fact that they dry quickly, they can increase production of that product. In addition, they are they're low VOC. However, they're higher cost, and they're higher cost to if you want to convert your current facility or start a new facility that uses UV or EV coatings. So with that, we felt that since we were not able to really acquire enough cost data, so because it's the industry, and Rita can let us know also, it's a competitive industry. So, but we wanted to acknowledge the fact that this technology is out there. So what we are proposing is to include in the BACT guidelines Part D, the use of rule compliant UV, EV, or water-based inks and coatings as an alternate method to comply with BACT. We are not requiring it as UV, EV as being BACT for all applications. That would require us to do an extensive cost analysis and really take us into the rule development realm, which we're not. So this is what we're going to be proposing. Next slide, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Anusha. So on the ruling, you are going to leave it as an option for
Yes, and right now,
option to be considered BACT if someone had decided to switch over or utilize that type?
Yeah, because right now the rules provide that option to use low VOC compliant coatings to comply with the rule requirements. Right. And that option is there, but we're now acknowledging that technology by including it in our guidelines, not as the ultimate only technology, but as a technology that has worked. For example,
as
it
a
worked.
viable one.
Viable, exactly. It's worked for furniture cabinet manufacturers that use exclusively that UV coating, and for the inks that are used in the flat glass manufacture of mirrors. Okay. So we're acknowledging that way.
All right, thank you.
So is this different than like emerging technology? Because I know there's a section on emerging technology.
Yeah, emerging technology, those are actually determinations that emerging technologies are one step away from becoming either BACT or LAER. But we're, in a sense, you could say that the UV and EV coatings and inks could be an emerging technology, but they're already been applied. I mean, they're used in the industry, and they work. And what we've heard, like I said, is that technology is customer driven. If a customer requests that, the facility would do it, and it works.
Al, yeah, yes. Al, this is Bill Lamar. We would agree that UVEB is an alternative, and as you say, driven by by the customer. I would hardly put it as an emergency technology. I mean, UV has been around over 50 years. I demonstrated it when I was with Edison at our CTAC facility for years. So it does work. It does in some instances, and again, depending on what the application is, people should use it if they can. It goes to their bottom line.
Exactly. Thank you, Bill. Rita,
Al, if I may comment, and thank you, Bill, for those comments. I remember the CTAC days. That was a long time ago. But what was happening and why this is important for our members is that there was confusion because it wasn't specified in the BACT guidelines. So even though it's BACT, we found that the applicant had to then go back and try to make a case-by-case determination to the district. And then in the permit, it would say at the end of the day, yes, they met the BACT requirements, but there was confusion on an engineer to engineer basis. And so this just adds the clarity. So we certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
And this slide here is an example. I mean, this is a glass screen printing facility. I believe it's in Compton. They've been in business for many years. and they do screen printing of exclusively UV inks on flat glass. And in fact, the carousel, the screen printing carousel that has several screen printing stations is actually exempt from rule 219 H1 A and C because of the use of very low VOC inks. So when we were looking for a permit, we couldn't find the permit. I was like, what's going on? I mean, they have the screen printing operation or flat glass, and they're using exclusively UV inks. And it apparently it was because of this rule 219 H1A option or allowance for an exemption, which is very unique. And the facility is happy with the product. Their customers are happy. They can process, they can produce a lot of flat glass that's dried quickly. So in that sense, this is what we're proposing, that as we're acknowledging that technology in the guidelines, not as the technology, but as an option to comply with B-BACT. Next slide, please. Similarly, we visited a facility, I believe was in the Orange County area. They have been in business for many years, 10 years or over, coating their wood cabinets with exclusively UV coatings. And they have been doing the work in their automated spray booth. And the UV products are very low VOC. So again, we're adding the similar compliance option that's already available in the rule, but we're making it and acknowledging it in our guidelines. Next slide, please. This, we had the opportunity, and I guess I should say the opportunity to really visit one of the facilities in the South Coast that's been around for many years, and is a very unique facility. It's Fender Guitars. This came to our attention through our engineering folks, that they had installed a thermal oxidizer that had achieved a NOx level of 30 ppm and a seal limit of 400 ppm, which was conditioned in their permits. And the thermal oxidizer is venting various spray rooms that they're utilized in the manufacture of wooden guitars, both electric and acoustic. Very impressive. For this, we've did a cost effectiveness because it was a minor source determination that we were going to be proposing. Again, that information is included in our B-BACT docket webpage. Next slide.
Al, sorry, a question. It doesn't, in the listing, the listing write-up, it doesn't indicate that this is the burners only. I see it on your slide, but I think there needs to be a clarification in the listing as well.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought we did. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't see it. I don't. Maybe.
Well, we'll take care of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, good point. This is a burner only.
Al,
yes. Go ahead, Bhaskar.
Yeah. Again, I mean, just talking about the burner, for RTO, it's important because the burners are used at startup, and we are saying that the limit is 30 ppm during the burner, because if you have fuel injection, then the emissions are much lower. So that's why we want to make the distinction that it's only for burner. Also in the process, if you have any nitrogen coming in, it'll convert to NOx. And we don't want to penalize you for any processed nitrogen that is converted to NOx. That's right. Why when we say burner, it only means that what's emitted by the burner. So that doesn't mean that you have to test it only on burner when you source test, unless you have nitrogen coming into your process. So for RTOs, you would do the test for proving compliance with this limit when the burner is in operation, not when the fuel injection is in operation.
Thank you for clarification. Thank you, Bhaskar. Next slide, please. Okay, as we always do, we are continually looking at our guidelines and trying to update the guidelines for consistencies to make sure that it's consistent with the existing rules, regulations, or rules that are being amended or adopted. And that this slide talks towards that. The first is the FLAIR. Rule 1118.1 was adopted, and it applies to new equipment. And we're basically saying compliance with 1118.1 would be backed for NOx, CO, and VOC. The two other what do you call it, determinations that we're correcting, those are for the fish reduction, which is a cooker, and coffee roasting, which are under 1147. Under the definition of a food oven, those are exempt from the rule, or rather are not included in the rule. The rule doesn't exempt them, or the rule does not cover them as being equipment that is subject to the NOx limits of 1147. So that exempt term really should be does not include, because these are not part of the Rule 1147 exemption clause. Basically, we're just correcting that, saying that Rule 1147 recognizes these fish reduction and coffee roasting as food ovens that are not subject to the NOx limits.
Hey, Al?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that brings up a question that I have on Rule 1147 and some of your earlier slides when you were talking about source testing, showing emission limits for compliance. You've got NOx limit 30 ppm. You know, the 1147 series of meetings that I've participated in, your staff is talking about 20 ppm and even lower than that. So does that mean that we're going to be revisiting these BACT determinations again in the near future, or has, you know, I know 20 and under, there's been some difficulty in getting holding temperatures there. So I'm just wondering how you know, about your earlier slides showing 30 ppm.
Very good point, Bill. Exactly. We have been keeping close tabs on the rule development of all those technologies that have been achieving 20 ppm, as you probably know. I think rule that comes to mind, I think is 11, what was it? One of the rules I recall, they are 1179.1. Oh, no. I'm talking, this is the refinery rule.
The one that the averaging time was 3 hours.
Yeah, in some of those cases, thank you, Bahar. If the averaging time, let's say it was 20 ppm, but it was averaging time was 3 hours. And in our case, we're talking 30 ppm in 1 hour averaging time. Then you're talking, they're saying that our 30 ppm is more stringent than their 20 at 3 hour averaging time.
Right.
But we're definitely keeping an eye on all those new upcoming technologies that if they achieve the 20 ppm in 1 hour average, yes, you can count on it that it'll be on our next update.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Next slide, please. And see, we're on slide 19. Is this, okay, I have 2 more slides, then Bahar takes over. Again, clarifications, like I said, we removed the NOx compliance with 1147 from coffee roasting. And again, for the FLAIR, we're adding compliance with 1118.1. And with the gas turbine, to be consistent, the boiler BACT determination, Part D, has, to be specific, under the ammonia slip column, it has with add-on controls. And to be more exact and to be consistent with that listing, we're also adding under the gas turbine under the ammonia slip column with add-on controls, because the ammonia slip is really happening not from the gas turbine, but from the SCR, the control equipment. Next slide, please.
Okay.
And Bahari?
Yes, I believe it's my turn now. So just keep continuing on Part D clarifications. For the IC engines, the only actually is kind of correction. So it is referred to Rule 431.2 amendment dated 2000. 2000, actually it's supposed to be 2003. So we just correct the date of the rule amendment. For open process tank, right now we have two categories: chemical milling, etching, and also we have chrome plating in the BACT guideline. So if you refer to the table that we posted on the website, so it shows that we removed those two different pages, one of them for chemical milling, the other one is for chrome plating. And then we just created the new one, or put all of them under open process tanks. So right now, both of them, they were merged under a new category, which titled open process tanks, chemical milling, and plating. And also we removed the chrome part because it seems that we want to be more general. So in case that more than chrome, we have other type of metals, then we will be able to add them to the table without being without doing a lot of changes. And also for packed scrubber, right now I just put a small table here under PM10. So right now that is what you're seeing under PM10 emission for chrome plating. So used to be packet scrubber and mist suppressant, but since Rule 1469, it has a table and it categorized different type of control technology. So we just removed the whole thing and we put compliance with Rule 1469 to be more consistent with the rule, the updated rule. And under polyester resin operation, again, we had one category of polyester resin operation, molding and casting. And also we had another table for fiberglass operation. So we renamed the fiberglass operation table to polyester resin operations, and then we add molding and casting under the same table. So right now, the page that we used to have for molding and casting is not there anymore. We remove it, but we actually move everything under polyester resin operations.
I have a question.
Well, sure.
On the chrome plating, I think that I'll just send you a note, but I think one of the mist suppressants was a PFAS material, but I'll send you a note and ask you. And I know the state's has already regulated PFAS materials in water, so and I know they have air programs, so I don't know if that applies here.
I think, Wayne, I think Rule 1469 addresses the PFAS, which is a mist or a suppressant, right?
Right, yeah. It's a very effective one, but okay, I'll send you a note. We can look at that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next slide, please. Okay, so for powder coating booth, the table down below, it shows the current wording in the BACT guidelines. So right now we have two different, based on the throughput, we have less than 37 pounds per day, and also we have equal or greater than 37 pounds per day. So based on one of our internal memo back in 1990s that they did some cost effectiveness for this particular case. So being consistent with our memo, we are going to change less than 37 to equal or less than 37 pounds per day. And then of course, the second one would be greater than 37 pounds per day. And in addition, if you look at PM10, different type of technologies is there. For someone that may not be very familiar with this type of industry, so when they read the wording, it says powder recovery system with a cyclone followed by a bag house or cartridge, dust collector or HEPA filters, and the efficiency should be 99% or greater. So this is kind of confusing because it sounds like that the person has to have the powder recovery system, and then it they can add a cyclone after that, but this is kind of the business decision. So for sure, some businesses, they decide for the recovery of overspray material to use the powder recovery system. But actually, this is not some sort of technology, because like cyclones, backhouse, or for example, the HEPA, they will be more effective, and they are actually our control technology for this system. So we are going to remove powder recovery system, because again, it is not some sort of control technology. And but it would be the business or the industry choice if they want to put this first to make sure they're recovering their powders, and then add, like the, for example, HEPA is more expensive, then add another extra layer of the control after the cyclone or filters. So, and then the way we are going to put it on, so we will give 3 options. So it would be backhouse or cartridge filters or HEPA filters, and we put the efficiency here. Excuse me, Al.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I just want to say that this slide is a result of us spending many hours with our engineering staff, and it's really this is something that they suggested to us, saying, you know, to make sure that when they issue permits, the regulated community is not confused as to what they are requiring, and to be consistent with the guidelines. They suggested we you know, correct that greater than 37 pounds to what Bahari mentioned. And really for example, the cyclone, really, we're not being less stringent by taking the cyclone out. Really, a backhouse is a lot more stringent in regards to controlling the emissions, and we're still keeping that there. And we don't want to dictate to the public if they want to recover the product, that some facilities would not want to recover the product. So what we're doing here is something that is making this determination a lot cleaner and more consistent with what's been being permitted out there.
So Al, what I hear you saying is that a baghouse is still permissible.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know a number of powder coaters do use that, and then they mix that with some virgin material, and it's you know, it's a cost-effective measure.
Yeah, I mean, the cyclone would be there if a facility wants to recover the heavy or not overload the backhouse. They can install the cyclone. Cyclone will recover the heavier particulates, but the backhouse really would be doing the primary control of the PM emissions.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Thanks.
Next one, please. Okay, now is the graphic arts printing. So the table right now for the control of the NOx, it's mentioned afterburner. So we just changed afterburner to thermal oxidizer, because last year when we updated the thermal oxidizer or afterburner section in Part D, this is how it's wording. So right now we have thermal oxidizer as one of our technology in Part D. So we just changed afterburner to thermal oxidizer to be consistent. And also we replaced compliance with South Coast AQMD Rule 1147 with thermal oxidizer under NOx column, because actually the thermal oxidizer right now is part of the BACT guidelines. So for the NOx emission, then the facility, they can just refer to that specific or particular technology and just follow the NOx limit, because we have different type right now. So it would be different. And then for compliant, and also the BACT right now is a little more stringent than 1147. The same for CO limit. Also, we put compliance with thermal oxidizer BACT requirements, because it has both CO and NOx limit right now. And replace control with alternatively for flexographic. Right now, the table, the first row, it talks about flexographic and all the measures that you need to for the VOC control. And then there is another alternative method to add on control. So instead of the word control, we use alternatively, because it seems that it actually represented in a better way instead of having control. So it would be another alternative way to control VOC emissions. Next page, please. Again, under the same category, we removed oil base for lithographic or offset heat set because we don't have oil base for the heat set. That's the input we got from our coding team. And in addition, we removed the same thing like what I explained in the previous slide. We removed control and we just merge it under the same lithographic or offset heat set. So before it was 2 rows. So I guess if you refer to the table, the strikeout, it is much clearer. So if you look at that, so we removed the control one, but we just move it to the previous row and add it to the current lithographic or offset heat set category. So we didn't change anything, we just merged them. Next slide, please. And then for thermal oxidizer, so this is what I just explained about the afterburner. So it used to be thermal oxidizer, afterburner, and catalytic oxidizer, but because of this, the Fender facility that we add to our Part D, so we add one RTO category to this table with the NOx and CO limit that we got from the permit, and then we kept the rest of that under other types. So right now we have a specific RTO, and then the rest of the thermal oxidizers, they will categorize under other types. Next slide, please. All right, so.
Okay, this is for Dave Rothbard. Dave, are you there? As you know,
you're happy to talk about the flare rule.
Okay. Well, as you know, as part of a resolution when we adopted the current version of the B-LAER guidelines back in February of last year, one of the resolutions that was added really on the adoption of Rule 11 18.1 was there were several resolutions. One of them applied to us, the BACT group, BACT group, to do a technical assessment of flares receiving biogas derived from the digestion of organic waste or co-digestion. The concern here was that with the new requirements of SB 1383, higher amounts of food waste would be introducing ammonia, or rather would be causing ammonia to be generated in the biogas, which when it was directed to flares would increase the NOx emissions. Well, we did a report back to the committee with our findings, and at that point, the committee, the Station Resource Committee, directed us to continue monitoring new and existing organic food waste digestion projects. This is an ongoing work that not only the industry, but the state is requiring facilities in the reduction of organic waste that would normally go to landfills to be otherwise directed. And one of the primary paths of this organic waste would be the public wastewater treatment facilities. And so we are committing to continue working. We always periodically we check with our engineering folks to see what are the latest permits that are being submitted for new organic waste digestion projects, monitoring to see if any of those are the high temperature, the thermophilic type, if there are any issues happening. And we welcome always the comments from the committee members to bring to our attention, because ultimately, if this becomes an issue, we have to revisit our BACT requirements for flares specifically that are venting digester gas or landfill gas.
Yeah, Al, thanks for the summary.
Sure.
I guess the concern is the legislation that requires food waste to come out of landfills and go somewhere else, which is likely to be wastewater treatment plants. The implementation of that really hasn't kicked in, so we don't have a lot to work with. So I guess the request is to just keep an eye on this, and when we do start getting food waste, to see if there's any impact. That's about the best we could do, in my opinion.
Yeah, from from my talks recently with our permitting staff, I believe besides the I think Rialto facility that's being still under construction, it's going to be like 1,000 ton a day or ton of, I want to say a ton a day or a month of organic waste. The other facility, I think maybe Orange County Sanitation District. Terry, do you know if you folks are working on something?
Yeah, actually, we were in the process of getting the permits for the food waste storage facility. But overall, this is like an interim facility, and we're looking at maybe at the most like 10% increase in our gas production. And this project is still a few years ahead.
Okay.
Like the same for our facility. Right now, people are starting to plan for the obvious diversion, but as far as implementing it, there's very few people that are doing it. I think Orange County, my organization, the facility you quoted, are ahead of the curve, but yet we don't have a lot of food waste to utilize yet.
Okay, well, please keep us in mind, and if anything comes your way, let us know.
I appreciate it. And as we look at different back determinations, I'll unfortunately, get on my soapbox periodically, but whenever it is appropriate, it would be nice to have a back determination for unique situations like biogas. Sometimes it's not going to be the same as natural gas. To the extent we could segregate it, it'd be appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, we, like you said, we did a study and we found out that there are various types, not only the low temperature traditional digester operations, but there are high temperature. There are some that use thermal hydrolysis, and those are very unique. I don't know if that technology would ever come out here to the South Coast. If it does, then we're talking something unique that we have to take a look at again. We'll see. I'm not sure whether that, maybe Dave or Terry, you might let us know to see if high temperature thermophilic digestion is something that is being considered for future organic waste.
At least I'm not looking at it. Maybe Orange County, I know LA City does do that. And again, it's steady state at the moment. There isn't a big change. Once we start seeing food waste come into a digester, we'll be able to get a better idea of any potential increase. And at least the research we did showed a little bit of an increase in ammonia for for mesophilic digestion, but that's for a small amount. So it's just one of those things we don't have an answer yet.
Okay, great. We'll keep following up on that. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, as you all know, over our past BACT SRC meetings, we always get asked, okay, what's going on with AB 617 Carbs Technology Clearinghouse? And today we have our CARB staff, special guests, they're going to provide a brief update on what's been happening with the BACT BARC Clearinghouse. We ourselves, in addition to other air districts, have meetings, periodic meetings every other week on the development of this online technology clearinghouse. And without any further ado, I'll let Paul. Are you online, Paul?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Al.
Great. You go ahead. Next slide, Tony, please.
Hi, my name is Paul Marina. I work in the technology assessment section within OCAP of CARB. Just want to give you a brief update of what my section's been working on. Let's see. So here, based on AB 617, the program's governing document, CARB is developing an online searchable database referred to as a technology clearinghouse. The system will house information on current cost-effective control requirements being implemented by air districts, along with some supplemental information on next-generation technologies. So given the program's governing documents, the Technology Clearinghouse will, these points here, the identify BACT, BARCT, and T-BACT, ensure data supports updates to district BACT determinations, and identify the best approaches for controlling emissions, including rules, regulations, technologies, or practices for mitigation. Now, the goal in developing the system is to provide transparent access of accurate, useful information to the public, making the system relevant, clear, and user-friendly. And in order to reach our goals, CARB has made and continues to conduct like outreach efforts. We get feedback from user groups, and then we implement the feedback within our system's design. So CARB has developed and released 3 prototype tools to date, which include the Air District Rules tool. This tool covers the rules component of the Technology Clearinghouse, and it provides the current rules for the 35 air districts in California. We've released the emergency backup power options for the residential application tool, which is part of the next generation technology portion of the system. It's intended to help the public identify technology options available in preparation of these power shutoffs or other emergency situations. And then we, from the residential application, we went towards the commercial applications. So we released the emergency backup power options for commercial applications tool, which is another part of the next generation technology components. And similar to, again, the residential tool, it's intended to help the community members, air districts, and businesses identify advanced and alternative technologies for backup power generation at their sites or at commercial sites. We also wanted to provide the advanced technology manufacturers an opportunity to increase awareness of their technology and improve the visibility of their products. CARB plans to release the BACT tool later this summer, which will incorporate all the BACT determination data from all the air districts, which we are closely working with all the air districts and reviewing their determinations and the data that's inputted into the system. So yeah, we keep our webpage pretty up to date. And much of this information and additional information can be found on the CARB's Technology Clearinghouse webpage.
I have a question.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I have a question for Paul. Just so I'm clear, at least, maybe everybody else is, will BACT, BARCT, and T-BACT be the same for the AB 617 communities as it is for everybody else?
I guess, Paul, let me, I guess, Bill, when you say be the same,
yeah.
As you know, here in the South Coast, we're at extreme non-attainment. So what BACT is for us here might be different for Shasta County up north.
No, I understand, but within the South Coast Basin, will BACT, BARCT, and T-BACT for Los Angeles or for Anaheim be the same as it is for Southgate or Compton? Right now, it is. BACT right now?
Yeah, I mean, BACT. If these facilities, these locations are within the South Coast AQMD, then they're subject to the same BACT, whether it's Orange County or it's LA County. Okay, so it will be the same when we're talking BACT in your jurisdiction. So for a print shop, a furniture manufacturer, or an auto body shop, BACT is BACT regardless of what its zip code is. Yes, but the thing is, this CARB Technology Clearinghouse is going to have a listing of the BACT, BARCT, and T-BACT for all the air districts in California. And I believe, Paul, you can chime in, but the purpose is for the public to be able to go onto this website and compare to see what is BACT for a boiler in South Coast, compare what is BACT for a boiler in the Mojave area or Imperial County or somewhere else. But BACT will remain the same in the South Coast as is, 30 ppm BACT for a thermal oxidizer is the same in let's say in the easternmost part of our air district as it is in the westernmost part of our district. But really, this technology clearinghouse is really a informational tool for the public to see how different BACT and T-BACT is in different air districts. And that's one of the biggest challenges that CARB right now has, to include that disclaimer or that caveat in their clearinghouse.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about South Coast only, and because we're such a broad area, and we do have some percentage or some number of 617 communities that you have gone through and that you're going to go through in subsequent years. So I just wanted to clarify in my mind that BACT or BART and BACT and T-BACT is the same regardless of what community that process or that equipment resides in.
Oh yes, if that's been the case all along, I mean, if BACT in Diamond Bar is the same as BACT in Southgate or anywhere else, and perhaps it might not be the same in other air districts, but if somebody installs a piece of equipment in any location within the South Coast AQMD, it'll be subject to our current BACT, BART, or T-BACT requirements.
Okay, thank you.
David Rothbart, quick question for CARB. For this process where you're going to have the clearinghouse, is this going to go through a public review process for comment and review?
The design of the database or the data that goes in, because we're basically just taking the data from each of the air districts and just implementing it.
Understood. I just wanted to check to see if there's any thought as far as when you have a new BACT or BART, would that go for a public review process?
I don't think, Paul, that because this technology clearinghouse is not going to change any of the
current process regarding the determinations. No, this process is just taking what the determination is and implementing into a database that just makes everything a little bit more transparent across all districts.
Just confirming, didn't know if there was any thoughts of that.
Okay.
Then another parallel question is, I know CAPCOA is working with individual air districts as far as test methods and emission factors. And I assume that's a separate process, but just wanted to check if that's dovetailed into this or not.
I would believe that's a separate, because that's first. Well, I mean, we have meetings with we have the CAPCOA, but I've not heard that regarding this. No emission factors are being implemented in this.
I believe this is a different process. They have a different working group.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh. Yes, thank you for the presentation. This is Rita. Just to follow up on David's question, I wanted to get a little bit better idea of how the process works. So once the district gets the 30-day public comment for the new determinations, what's the process? How long does it take at CARB for it to go into the updated clearinghouse, or to do the actual update and incorporate the district data in that clearinghouse?
Paul, can I go really quickly?
So currently, we are actually working on all. Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. That's a good question, Rita. That's one of the subjects we talk a lot about when we have our meetings, our biweekly meetings with CARB. The AQMD for us, whenever we submit a BACT or letter determination to CARB for their technology clearinghouse, we will not send it to them until it goes to our governing board. After the governing board approves both the major and minor source, then at that point, we will send it to CARB, because we do not want to send anything that is not quite ready for prime time. Anything we send to them would be ready. However, I found out myself, there are other districts in California that as soon as they issue a permit to construct, they send that back determination to CARB. That is different. Those are the things that CARB is going to have to, flag and say, okay, this district has issued this permit, and they submitted a back determination. But the issue still remains: has been achieved in practice, has been operating for 6 months to a year, and all these different other criteria, which like I said, it could be a different. Now, go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, I was just saying currently we're working on all the current back determinations and implementing that data into our system. There is a process that we're trying to iron out prior to this system actually.
Paul,
I think right now we just have a prototype regarding the back determinations, and right now.
Hold on, Paul. I think we're losing your signal there.
Working on different. Yeah.
Paul, I'm sorry about that.
Is my
your connection was in and out.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Can you start again? Sorry about that. Oops. Are you there, Paul?
Sorry. Yeah. So right now we have a prototype. That's what we're trying to hope. It's is it still going? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Your signal, maybe your Wi-Fi is going in and out.
Sorry, I live out in Galt, so.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell you what. Let's see. Can you speak to see if you're okay now?
Hello. Yeah. Is it? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So we have a prototype for this BACT tool we're hoping to release in the summer. Right now we have we're trying to collect and work with all the districts regarding what back determination data we have currently, that it's active right now, to get that implemented into the database. That we are working within sections. We're focusing on internal combustion, like the major sources. Once we get that going, we're going to start working through the rest of the categories. When we come to developing something for the BACT tool that actually goes live, that's so like air districts in the future can begin to inputting information within the system. We have a process that we're kind of outlining regarding air districts implementing the data. So I guess from like adding on to what Al was saying, the time frame when they actually have a batch determination and they submit it to us, it does change. It's different between different air districts when they actually send us the information. But we are trying to iron out that process, because all the districts we realized with these batch determinations, there are many differences.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Again, at the next meeting, hopefully we can get another update from CARB. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions for Paul, we'll move on to the next slide. Here we go. We're at the end at this point. Like I said, in accordance with our policy, we are providing a 30-day notice period for the proposed updates. It ends August 21st. And here is the URL that I was talking about, where you can find the links to the proposed updates to every section of the BACT guidelines that we're proposing to update. And you can mail us your comments, written comments. We even left the fax number there. We discussed whether we should remove the fax number or not. We said, you know what? We have a working fax machine for that number, so we're going to keep it there. although most of the comments we'll get as emails, but if you have the urge to send us a fax, we'll take it.
Hey, I'll refrain from sending anything to the fax number, but quick question on Appendix A. As far as there's a statement, there's a new addition you have in there, and it talks about demonstration of compliance for BACT, and it's saying this provides information such as source test or other method that was used to demonstrate compliance. Any thoughts as far as what would be applicable? And let me give you the context of why I'm bringing this up. Is I said this previously, as far as the different groups within South Coast have different requirements for source testing. And right now, it seems to me the demonstration needed for BACT is the lowest bar, and the highest bar is for AERs. And I've been saying for a while, we need to rethink what source testing is required for what purpose. So that's why I bring that up.
Yeah, when you say Appendix A of the guidelines or Appendix A of where?
It's Attachment C, Part A, Policy and Procedures for Major Polluting Facilities is what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, we'll take a look. But yeah, that, as you know, that's become a topic in the Equate meetings. Yes. That's been going on. And really for BACT, we're working with Tracy Goss and his staff on that. And for BACT, the source test requirements that we really don't outline any source testing requirements. We really take it from what the actual permit requires, because for the most part, a lot of our BACT determinations or LAER are really based on achieved in practice, and that comes from an actual permit that's issued. And the actual permit has those requirements for they state the type of method to be used, and we don't go above and beyond what those permits require.
And I'm not necessarily saying you need to. It's just, it'd be nice to have a thought process that's consistent across all the departments at South Coast. And to me, what you're doing is not objectionable, but having a higher standard for AERs doesn't make sense to me. So maybe that's the easiest way for me to characterize my concerns that I have.
Yeah, when you say higher standard, I like doing it in triplicate and
at least what I'm seeing for the requirements that are coming out of the AER group seems to be a higher level scrutiny than what I'm seeing for compliance in general. And if we're going to have a hierarchy of what should have the highest level of scrutiny, I would think it's BACT.
Well, sure. Perhaps AR folks are establishing emission factors, and if there's a policy of requiring that, but I don't know if Tracy Goss is online or any of the engineering folks can provide some input. But yeah, having a standard method to test, but really to deviate from the test method would be something that not quite is what BACT would require. That'll be something deviating from what the permit requires. So I don't know if anybody else from staff would like to comment.
Al, this is Judy. May I comment?
Sure.
Maybe to chime in a little bit with what David is saying. I know in these determinations, we're citing that there are source tests that have been completed and that they substantiate compliance. But at the same time, at least I know I'm aware that the source test group has reviewed those source tests and have not agreed that they demonstrate compliance. So not to get anyone in trouble, but I think that if we're going to use source tests, they should be source tests that have been reviewed by the source test group, and they have also agreed. And I think that would then make it consistent with what David is saying for the AERs. AERs may only use source tests which have been determined acceptable by the source test group. But I'm not sure we're doing the same.
Oh, yeah, believe me, that is no different from the BACT group. All the determinations, whether layer or minor source that we're proposing, and the supporting documentation for source tests, all these source tests have been conditionally approved by our source test group. Because if we use a source test that has not been approved by our source testing group, then that's personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing it to you folks. And I know some of the source test folks that are online, they know that many times our BACT group sends them a request to review source tests that we are going to utilize as supporting documentation for our BACT proposed updates. So that's, I can tell you that that's our policy in the BACT group, that we would not utilize a source test that has not been approved by a source test group. I mean, our source test group would approve the protocol first of all for the source test, and then once the source test is conducted, it gets sent back to our source test group to review.
I'll kind of just address David's comment a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, you know, what David said, you know, we have been talking to David and other facilities also about it's not so much as you mentioned, it's not whether it's some tests are used, source tests are used for AER or AB 2588 purposes or for compliance. It's not so much that we are deviating from a test method. The test methods are the same, whether you measure NOx or hydrocarbons or something like that. But it's essentially, as you mentioned earlier, in some situations, is the number of tests. And we are talking internally over here, you know, within our agency to see how we can streamline the process and address David's comments.
Yeah, I appreciate the whole dialogue. I think it's just something it's worthwhile to say in general for source testing, what level of scrutiny, what level of reproducibility should you have for what purpose? I understand for AERs, you want to make sure that it's representative for that purpose. I'm just saying if you need to do a triplicate sample for AER, it seems like we should have that level of scrutiny for a limit that you have to live with in most facilities, a 24/7 limit. And maybe you do one source test. Is that really giving you enough of the information to say that that's achievable all the time? So that's one example why I think it's a good dialogue.
Okay, thank you. Since we're now at the point for public comment, I see Sean too with his hand up. Let me allow him to talk. Sean, can you talk now? Sean? Hello, Sean.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I have a few questions. The first question is with regard to the duct burner, the sulfur limit of 40 ppm and 30 ppm. Yes. I was looking at the permit. It has both refinery gas and natural gas. So did you confirm that during the test the source was running refinery flue gas or natural gas? Because if during the source test to meet the 40 ppm, a facility could just turn on natural gas to meet the 40 ppm limit. But during the normal operation, they could revert to the refinery flue gas, which could be higher than 40 ppm.
Yeah, good point. Bahari, do you recall the test?
So for this one, they have a limit, so they cannot blend natural gas more than 72 hours per year. And we look at the 6 months of the data for them. So I don't have the exact information and which day they had those blending, but this is based on the 6 months data. And they are allowed to that. But in our BACT determination, we didn't limit the blending So we just left it for the facility to decide how they are going to actually meet the limit.
So Sean, in short, whether the facility met that limit within the allowed conditions in their permit. Like Bahari mentioned, within whatever the 72-hour natural gas blending period.
Okay, so my second question or comment is, I think you will be revising a limit from one source from 2.5 to 2.3 ppm. To me, yeah, one of the units. To me, 2.5 and 2.3 ppm is within the area of measurement. So my suggestion is to leave it at 2.5.
Well,
because when you do a source test, you'd be lucky if we can get that kind of accuracy, you know, down to 0.1 or 0.2 ppm.
Yeah, I'll allow our engineering folks. I think Bhaskar, are you still online to comment on that?
This was the limit that was on a gas turbine, that was placed on a gas turbine, and it has a SIMS to measure the 2.3 ppm. So it's not something that's tested. I mean, it's probably tested annually also. But when we are looking at the data, the 6 months data or 1 year data, it's from the SIMS, and the SIMS is showing less than 2.3. I know it's not that much of a significance, but if you look at percent, it's almost 10% lower than what the limit is.
And the SIMS has that kind of accuracy, right?
Yes, and SIMS says, yeah, that accuracy.
And it is a
So when a source does a radar test, there's like a 20% allowance, right? For the radar, relative accuracy is 20%. So
the 20% on 2.3 versus 20% on 2.5, you still have difference there, right?
okay, yeah. Now my next question is the thermal oxidizer.
Okay.
The NOx limit, is that for the burners only?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Anybody else of the public? As I'm scrolling up and down I don't see any raised hands, or the folks that are on the phone. So far, we have 2. Well, with that, we're actually.
Al, I think on the phone, there's a different function. I thought the instructions before were that you have to do *9 if you want to.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Rita. We have 2 folks on the phone. So if one of the 2 folks on the phone would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I went ahead and unmute them so they could talk, the people on the phone.
Thanks, Tony. Well, with that, we're at the point, almost 4 o'clock. Thank you, everybody. The next steps again are to provide a 30-day comment period. Please provide comments written format. And after August 21st, we're going to schedule our 3rd and final B-LAER SRC meeting, at which point we would take the proposed updates to our board meeting, as is required under state law for us to have a hearing, specifically for the minor source. So it'll be the whole updates that'll be taken to the governing board really for approval. When that's going to happen after August, we're hoping this year, late this year. We're going to be taking this not only to the B-LAER SRC committee meeting, but also to the stationary source committee, and then to the board. So with our current challenges, we plan to go as fast as we can, and also consider all your comments. And with that, thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a good evening. And at this point, anybody else? Bahari, any final words? Okay.
No, I just want to thank you, everyone.
Oops. We lost Bahari.
Again? Okay.
There you
I'm
There
back. I just want to thank you everyone for your participation, and we are looking for your comments.
We have a hand raise for one of the attendees.
Hand raise? Okay, let's see. Who? Somebody had a hand raised. Let's see. The attendees? Shams?
Hi, Al. How you doing?
Good, good. Go ahead.
Quickly, can I get a copy of the presentation emailed?
Yes, the presentation will be made available on that same back webpage on the back notices docket. We're going to put a
Okay.
link to the presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Again, thanks everybody, SRC committee, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.